Hey Roberto, good to see you.
Hey, hi, Janis.
What's up?
Same
How are you
here.
feeling?
Well, I'm excited to do this, and thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Like I want to give people some context, and this will be like how well I know you. But I actually, you know what I did right before the interview? I went to ChatGPT and I asked, "What do you know about Roberto Ferraro?" And you know what it replied? It gave me three. It gave me three Roberto Ferreros,
Okay.
and you were the first one, so you are winning. There's also a screenwriter Roberto. There's the journalist and author Roberto, and then there is you, project leader, coach, and visual creator. So ChatGPT knows about you, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
You've been very good with the personal branding.
I'm winning the CEO contest, but maybe there were just three Roberto Ferrari all over the world. So.
Nah,
Yeah.
but that's good. But just to give people some context, like you are, I look up to you in so many ways. Like you seem like a super present father. You have two kids. You are working full time at one of the largest Spanish banks. You also do coaching on the side. You also are like some guest teacher on some university or something like that. Aside of that, you're an absolutely prolific content creator. You create visuals, you do interviews, you show up on my timeline like pretty much every single day. It's wild how much actually you can do. And later, I want to talk about systems. I want to talk about how do you actually do this, because I'm like, sometimes I feel like, damn, I'm so like overwhelmed with the stuff I do, and there's so many projects I do, and then I think about you, and I'm like, god damn it, And I don't think you have employees. I think you're all super systemized and just being a badass in general. So that's super inspiring, and we will talk about that a bit later.
Thank you.
Um, but you kind of online you really took off with the visual stuff, because back in the days it was, I think, late 2021, in the NFT hype, you kind of, as an act of support, you bought one of my NFTs, and a little bit after that, I launched my course and community where you joined, and then you shared your first visual on when it was. I'm actually looking at it. It's January 23, 2022. A nice chair with your
Uh,
goal, healthy food, exercise, sleep is like the foundation of your goals. That was your first visual, and now we are several years later. You have over 100K LinkedIn followers, over 100K on Instagram, like a lot of followers on all over the place, around 10K on Substack. So you're all over the place, being super prolific content creator with all the other stuff I mentioned to you. Like, first question I want to ask you. You can adjust the bio which I listed here, but I think it's more or less accurate.
Absolutely
But
accurate. And you mentioned the father the first, which is great. And actually, this is my most important of job.
yeah, no, it's you're really good. I've visited you, a little bit, and it's just very inspiring to see how you operate. I still remember, and I have shared a couple of friends how I have this friend Roberto, and you know what he does with his technology? He actually, they have a special cabin in the kitchen where they put all their phones, and actually if they use phone at the dinner table, their her daughter actually like calls out like, hey daddy, don't use the phone. So all these little things, it's very inspiring and awesome. But putting that aside, how surprised are you that like visual content creation is like one of your main things actually that you kind of do? Maybe it's not the goal for the future, but that's, at least it seems like that's the main reason kind of how you grow socially and develop this influence in the leadership space and coaching and whatnot you're talking about.
Yeah. And thank you, Jenny, for the generous meal. Thank you so much for that. Actually, not too much surprised now that I look back. Of course, it's easy to look back and to see 2021. Yeah, I did this and then that and that. Because then my mother said, "Oh yeah, Roberto, I remember you were doing these cartoons when you were a kid. I was doing just scribbling in the class when I was high school or even later, earlier. And we were doing this comic stuff, and we were always laughing, like wow!" It was like some kind of healthy competition between three people in my school, who is going to make the funniest cartoon. And what we are talking about anything happening at school, and we had all these characters, the evil one, the teacher, and it was so fun. So yeah, I think this is a way also to bring back some of the playfulness that we all have, and we all have it. And then by some age, we become serious and we stop doing these kind of things. So yeah, looking back, this is not a surprise. Maybe it's a surprise when you rediscover this thing. They say, wow, I can do this. Yeah, I'm not, I can still do that. And another example, which is not related, but it's very connected to the idea of being curious. What makes you curious? What makes you excited? And of course, trends, and there's something that excites you a lot in one point, and then you somehow go to the learning curve, and then there is another thing which is good. We all want novelty. And I remember the same feeling when I tried the first time GPT-4, the good one, after the 3.5, and I say, whoa, I can actually program with Python, even if I don't know Python, so I don't need to study for 2 years. I can jump on the train, and that's the same excitement. And like, wow, rediscovering things or new things. This is absolutely amazing. That's part of the reason I think I'm doing this.
Awesome. Yeah, the vibe coding is big now.
Yeah.
But like, can you walk me back a bit? Because when I shared with you, hey Roberto, thanks for buying my NFT. By the way, I have this course and community. I want you to give access to it. Like when you joined, like before you joined, did you even had like an idea that you could create visual content, or was like, okay, I have this thing, let me check out what Janis shares, and then you started and you kind of fell in love with the process, and that's when you started, and that was the pivotal point to start this type of content creation, or there was something before we kind of met?
Exactly. There was nothing before. I was starting to share stuff. Yeah, I was already sharing things, but then I think, oh, yeah, I can do it my own thing, and maybe I like it. Let's give it a try. And at that point, you mentioned a lot of the things. I love to talk about a pizza metaphor, where each slice of pizza is an activity. At that point, there were not so many slices of pizza, so I could dive in one thing, which is also, by the way, great to focus on one thing. And then when you are satisfied, or we just say, okay, I learned enough, then you can pivot a little bit, but without leaving it aside. So at that moment, it was like just, okay, I have some time. I want to experiment. And especially one of the things that you always share is that you don't have to be a designer. You don't have to be a professional, whatever the word means. You just have to have ideas and want to share these ideas. So that's also part of the encouragement that I got from you, from your story, from how you shared your story, from how you did all the things from your 9-to-5 job to starting sharing, and all the stories that you shared publicly, which was great and very, very inspiring. And then everyone can choose whatever he or she wants to be. But you showed that you don't have to be 4 years in the process. You can just do something, share it, and see what happens, see how it feels, and that's it. So very grateful for having bought that NFT.
Okay, got it. So you were curious about, in general, about like building a brand, content creation. Okay, I could tweet some stuff and this, and then was like, okay, there is this new format, that Janis does, let me look into it, and then I was like, oh, holy crap, this is actually pretty fun, and now we are like, how many visuals have you created? Is it in thousands, or still we are in hundreds?
Oh, no, it's in thousand. Let's see. Let me check, because I don't remember exactly the number, but yeah, we'll check in the system, by the way. Let's see. List. No, just filtering. I have 2,476.
Oh my
But
gosh.
then if I check just the publisher one, is 1,297, which is, by the way, also very in ratio, which is, I don't do everything that I put in my backlog. Roughly half of the things I put in backlog, I finally do it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And like, if we go back, talking still about the visuals, your initial process, I believe you started right away at the software-wise. You did Affinity Designer, and I think you are still on the Affinity Designer. how much your process have like changed, or some mindset shifts, or I do believe later we can talk more about AI, how that have like involves in the process. I'm positive you use it, to find the right wording, or like some metaphor ideas or something like that. Like, how's the process like back then when you really started and now? Like, what's some oddly similar things that are still the same, and what are some things where okay, this is significantly different since I started out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me start with which is exactly the same, which is having an idea, something capture my attention, and I immediately or write it down or take a screenshot or with the phone, whatever, and put it in the backlog. This is exactly the same. And
okay, let's get specific right away. Backlog is living where? Notion?
Yeah, exactly. It's a Notion system where I put all screenshot or write or make a scribble and make a photo, and everything goes into Notion. And in this database, there is just one huge database, which is illustration, and then I have 3 states: the backlog, which is all that have no state yet. Then I have the discarded stuff, which I said, okay, I'll do it, but then I see, no, that's not worth doing. I have the next, which is when I want to do something, I put in the next, and then I have the archived when it's done.
Okay,
but
super.
Most of the time,
let's continue. Let's continue to get super specific. How do you handle? Because I have a similar document where whatever, some initial random thought comes in, I like take a quick note or whatever. But sometimes it's tweets, sometimes it's some other ideas, sometimes it's visuals. Do you sometimes have an idea for like a separate, like a textual post, or do you have several of these backlogs when it comes to raw ideas, or you have one big backlog where you dump in everything and then you filter, this is actually a marketing idea for my coaching practice, this is a newsletter idea, or you have separate backlogs, and when you take the note, you kind of figure out where to funnel it?
Yeah, actually, I have several. Yeah, good question. The main backlog is the illustration, which I put all the idea. And most of the time, when I have the illustration, there is an article associated to that. So it's already connected. Because I see, for example, there is a beautiful article from Amy Edmondson, which is a myth about psychological safety from last week. And I selected for the newsletter, say, I want to do something on this. And then I put in the backlog. I connected the article with the idea in the backlog, and I did it, and now it's prepared for the next newsletter. So that's one way. And the other way is general ideas. I have another database, which actually I was using Todoist for a long time. And it took me a leap of faith to go into Notion and migrate everything. Let's say, will it work? Will I invest 4 hours of my weekend for something that's not going to work? And yeah, I'm working everything in Notion, and I have this backlog of stuff where I do the follow-up with people. When I have project, when I have an idea, I put it there. And so if you want, it's like a huge backlog of articles and illustration connected most of the time, and then general stuff, projects.
Understood. Okay, it's interesting that you mentioned the source as well. So you listen to a podcast instead of writing the idea, you write the idea and like, okay, this I got from Tim Ferriss's podcast, whatever, and got it. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Okay, what else is similar, or what's different?
Well, so this is similar. The most similar thing is that I use the same process to get the ideas, to process them, and to connect them. And this is good, because if you had to change the system every time, it would be crazy. So it is also another interesting thing. You don't start from this super complex system. You keep adding a little bit when you see it works, and then you add another piece, and then another piece, and then will come a moment when you say, okay, maybe I add one field every 2 months if I have something, but it's pretty stable after.
This is good, yeah, because I think, like, let's imagine I'm your like system auditor right now. If I would go like, hey Roberto, why is this here? Does this make sense? It seems like you could justify the reason why it's there, and does it make sense? Because when it comes to creating systems, I know myself, people are often like, they create these crazy things which add like zero value, and it's just, I have this big beautiful thing, but the ROI is like, yeah. But I guess for you it's different. You can justify it, and I can of course see, because your newsletter is like this journal of discoveries, and it's like there is this connection, so I can see how it all kind of connects together. But it's nice to hear that you're intentional about adding stuff instead of just I like
Yeah.
fancy tables, so I add a lot of fields.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I love that. But then at the same time, connected to that, Janis, I just removed two sections after almost 1 year. I was posting on TikTok and I was posting on Blue Sky. And after 6 months or more doing the work in the weekend, planning and not even planning because I couldn't plan something, and then capturing the links, all the systems say, this is not working. I'm not enjoying this. Stop. And it felt good. And it felt good. And then I say, okay, if it becomes big as Substack, for example, now I'm very positive about Substack, and I hope that the platform grows. Maybe I can jump in anyway. So it's never too late. So I'm like, oh no, I'm missing out. But I admit that I struggle to click on the remove the column, because the column is still there because I didn't destroy the data, but I stopped using them. So yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, and when it comes to visual creation, what are some of the things which are significantly different from like the early days? I would assume AI. I would be curious how you use AI, because back in the days when you started, AI was still like a super niche thing, and I think GPT 3.5 even was not out, and now we have like new groundbreaking models coming out every single week, you know.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
what's some other things? Yeah, can you talk a bit about that?
absolutely. And that's super interesting because now that I look back, when I started, there was no AI to create from scratch.
The good old days.
Yeah, and it was fun. In a way, it was very fun because and absolutely there was this craft, even if it's just tracing, because of course there are many things that you can go online, find an image, you trace it, and then you tweak it a little bit, because that's how I do it, at least. And especially, of course, I look for images that are free of commercial licenses, so it's the most ethical possible, and especially if I then license my own work. But then there are popular meme or something that I just want to recreate. So that was the beginning. I didn't have this huge asset, this huge library of assets of vectors. So everything was new. So if I wanted to create a tennis racket, I had to create the tennis racket from scratch, do all the points, and do it nice. And so I like it. If I wanted to create a bottle, I had to look for a bottle, see, and create. So this was probably the first part, was like building this library, and then some pattern emerged. So for example, there were these kind of visuals which I classify, for example, threat to something existing. For example, a wrecking ball and a wall. There is something that you want, and the wrecking ball is the danger. Then there is the dynamite and the train passing up, which I remake early on. Then there is the classic balloon or the needle or the cactus, and they're all the same idea. So little by little, I started to create this meta library of type of metaphors. And it's good because then when you have something that you want to create, for example, there is the six most important thing. You can check in the backlog on what you did, and you see what are the kind of visual that I done where the theme is parts of a whole. And then you check and you see if you have an inspiration and make a variant on that or not. So that's the first part, the creating a library. The
Mm-hmm.
second step was where I used AI to give me alternative metaphors for the same idea. So I said, I have this article or whatever, I have this concept, and I'm going to use this kind of metaphor. And these are two examples. Can you give me 10, 20 more? And sometimes it gave me a good idea. So I did it. And then another step is create an image with that from scratch, which is royalty free because it's generated at the moment. But then I don't like the style. At least at that point, and yet AI is getting better and better, which, by the way, but still it's not like my style. So I even if it's generated by AI, copy, I put it into my affinity, I trace it, and then I make it mine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second part, adding AI. And the third, which is where I am now, and I see that I have this huge library of stuff. And when I want to create something, for example, you mentioned the class, I did the leadership class at ISD, which was, by the way, a fantastic experience. and I hope to do more. What happens is that I had my storyline for the class, and every time I had a concept, I thought of a visual, and most of the time, 95% of the time, I already have a visual, but with a different text. And then I recombine what I already have. It's like little Lego pieces. Imagine that you have 10,000 Lego. How many things you can create with 10,000 Lego?
Yeah,
And
that's a
you
lot.
don't have to
So
create again and again new assets. But if, for example, there was one where there was the 11 core competencies of the digital age. And I had these, I'm very big Marvel fan as my son, Luca. And I have these logos of the Avengers. And there were 10. So, okay, I said, okay, I need one more. And then I did the Black Panther. And then I created a new asset. So now it's very different because I have this huge backlog, this huge content, and I can pick, repurpose, and combine. And it's still fun. I still enjoy it so much, but it's completely different than 4 years ago.
okay, so I would say probably these days you spend less time on creating new illustrations because you can leverage a lot of the work you have done previously. Whatever, you illustrated the dynamite and now you have an idea with like 6 dynamites and something else, and you can pick that and put the dynamites there. It's like copy paste, resize, do some stuff, and you have a new concept ready to go much faster than like trying to trace and find the right thing to trace and like now ask ChatGPT, hey, can you make us, because that's something I do as well. I'm like a crap artist in terms of like drawing stuff, so I go as well. I go to ChatGPT and let's say, hey, can you just do an outline of X, and it does something, and like okay, then I take that, trace it so it's with my line weights and everything.
Exactly.
So that does sound similar, though you're much more in the metaphors than I am. I like to play more with like geometrical type of illustrations, and I know you are super prolific when it comes to metaphors, same as PG. He's like super good with this stuff as well, and there's few others, but I'm not that crazy with metaphors. I don't know. I guess because I'm just so lazy that I just illustrate like a freaking few lines and and I'm good. But okay.
It's fun for us. So it's there is. I think again there is no good or better way to do it. You just communicate it. It's just a way to share ideas. Everyone has his own style. So
yeah, that's the beauty of it. There's no, I think, right or wrong. There's just different and like we can play a lot. Like, do you use AI? I know one of the most common ways how I use AI currently in the visuals is actually like super simple. Very often we have these comparisons, when you try to find like a good flow, how to like say something, hey, there is, you love this, but not that, or whatever, and then I often ask ChatGPT like, hey, can you give me like alternative text versions for this comparison? So I always like to find like, so there's a good flow, so it smoothly goes from left to right, and there's this nice flow within the text and stuff. Like, is that something you do as well?
Oh, I didn't do it yet, but I will.
Yeah, no, that's where I find AI the most useful to what we do with conceptual thinking. It's not there yet. Yeah, I think it's decent with coming up with metaphors. It can find the logic, but I think it goes to how well you prompt it as well, right? Because if you ask just like super plain prompt, but if you like, I want the metaphor, to make sense and be meaningful and should has the connection between this and that, then you can, I think, point it better.
And connected to that, Janis, there is one thing that I use, which is the reverse. I used a GPT, which is just a custom instruction, to give me an alternate alt text and a description. So if I upload the image and ChatGPT understands, I say, okay, maybe it's clear. And then I do the second test, which is my wife or my daughter. But then I cannot send them every single image, but it's a good test. What does ChatGPT thinks of your illustration?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I will steal this. I will steal this because I usually either don't ask anybody. I guess I'm just too arrogant. Oh, this is good. or I will ask like my wife if she's next. But yeah, asking ChatGPT actually makes sense because it's true. Like, we can get so much into our heads and in our craft that kind of a person who is a bit outside this bubble can be like, huh? What do you really mean here? So this is a good test.
Yeah, and one thing that I would add, I would ask ChatGPT, and I will do it, to be more critical because it's very condescending. It always says, "Oh, this looks great," and even if it's intuitively get the idea, maybe I should even ask, "Can you find me flaws or something that cannot be so clear, or maybe too much of text or whatever?" And then I'm curious to see what kind come out.
I was actually right before the right before we started the conversation, I went into X and whatever, just scrolled the feed, and I saw a tweet where one guy said that one cool thing he finds nice about the new Google Gemini AI is that it answered him like, I understand what you're saying, but you're wrong because of this and that. Because usually, as you say, the ChatGPT and I think others are like always like, if you say like, no, I'm right, you are wrong, it's like, oh yes, I'm sorry. It's very much like that. But I think like a good AI should be able to say like, no, like this is right because of this and that.
Exactly.
So, but that's a very good point, yeah, because they are very like biased to please you. So that's a great point. Listen, can we switch a bit to something else? I want to ask you, because I'm just curious, because you have a newsletter on Substack. I have 2 newsletters on Substack right now. And what I saw was, I don't know when did you did that, but I saw you use the newsletter functionality on LinkedIn as well. And there's some pros and cons. I think the easy thing is like you can very easily convert some of your followers. I think you have almost 50K subscribers on newsletter, LinkedIn newsletter, but you have over 100K regular followers, which means like you have converted 50% very easily, which is amazing. But you can't export email lists from LinkedIn, which is a big thumbs down. But I'm just curious to hear like, why did you start to share the newsletter there instead of only Substack to get more reach? Like, do you consider like all these SEO type of things? Like, what's the reasoning there? And do you see like a good ROI? Is it's like I'm just trying to figure out, should I do the same as well? Because like, yeah, it's interesting. You probably can get your writing in front of more people, but you kind of now are, not funneling all the people to the Substack where you want and where you can get the email lists, So it's like interesting topic. I'm curious to hear what's the reason behind that.
Definitely. And actually, I have the same editions in LinkedIn and Substack. I started practically the same time. And at that point, which is 3 years ago, there were some kind of promotion in LinkedIn where they said, please create newsletter. They was incentivizing creating newsletters. It was like a new feature. But the main reason is that also it's so easy to do it in 2 platforms. It was like, okay, I have this. I can create in Substack, and I created in Substack too. But Substack at that moment was very little compared to LinkedIn. So I said, okay, I can put it in 2 places. And then I put a link inside LinkedIn if someone wants to subscribe to Substack, so they can go there. I think almost no one does that because it's pretty stable. So probably what happens is there are different audiences. And I heard a few times that not everyone is on every social platform. So probably not all the people that are on LinkedIn are also on Substack. Not all the people that are on LinkedIn are on Instagram. And it's like, who is on Instagram mainly is in Instagram, mainly on Twitter or X or whatever. So there is an overlap, but not that much. So I thought the cost of doing it in 2 places is so small that it's like 5 more minutes of preparation because it's just copy and paste. And then to your question of how do they get 49,000 is because every single follower, I discovered it later, and it's not on the manual, not anywhere. Every follower gets an invitation after they follow me to subscribe to my newsletter, but I don't set it up. It's just standard user interface of LinkedIn, which, by the way, they could tell before because I wasn't aware that I was sending this message, this invitation, until someone said, "Oh, I like this. Did you invited me to your newsletter?" And I said, "Okay, thank you." and so this is more like an alternative and not a substitute. And of course, I would love to have the email list because, today you mentioned the follow-up, but maybe tomorrow the reach goes down or whatever, and your newsletter is not seen by anyone. You don't control that. I love about Substack that I can see who opens it, who don't. I have the email, and it's a great model. I much prefer that. But at the same time, it's, let's say, free having a newsletter on LinkedIn. And I think I could not get all these 50 people from LinkedIn straight to Substack, because probably they will say, no, I'm just on LinkedIn. I want to stay on LinkedIn. And if you ask me their email and to subscribe to another thing, I will not do it. So
Yeah, okay.
An extra. Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I will consider to
And there's one more
move.
thing, Janis, which is counterintuitive. In terms of reach, I saw, and I also do it every Saturday. I posted my a normal post without the article, and then the link to the newsletter on Substack. And then in the afternoon, I post the article with the newsletter on LinkedIn. So it's twice the same thing on Saturday. Probably not the same people is going to see. But what I saw, which is pretty strange, is that the newsletter, the official newsletter on LinkedIn, was seen by less people than the post. And this changed with time. So again, we don't control Mr. Algorithm. We don't know how it's working. So I thought, again, it's 5 to 10 minutes. I'll keep doing. And there's some people that told me that they still receive the email. So it's good. I'm pretty happy of this setting.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. I guess makes sense. Yeah, I'm thinking I'll probably do it as well for the explain ideas visually newsletter, because there the incentive kind of is, to get it in front of as many people as I can, and people benefit, and some of them, go and become the course students or whatever. So.
And it's very good. I love your newsletter with the one you co-created with your wife. This is amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a new experiment, and so far so good. So good.
Keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, this will be one of the issues. So we'll see how that will end up. Listen, can we switch gears a little bit? I'm very curious to hear a bit about your licensing business, particularly because I've done tiny bit amount of licensing myself, but it all came through DMs or whatever, because I don't advertise. I've never spoken about it. It's people reaching out to me and just asking this. So I've never taken the time to make it in my website and creating an offer. But you have made it very if people go to your website, robertoferraro.net, I think, you have listed all the services you provide. Coaching and licensing is one of them. And you have these nice packages that people can buy. How is that going? Is that fine, or it's it's there and it brings some money in, or how's that side of your business, super broad business and full-time job you're doing? How's that performing?
Well, I think it's a nice thing to have in a way that someone may be interested in having some custom version. I decided I don't do freelance job because that would be too time intensive. So I said, and in the very beginning, someone was asking me, can you do custom illustration? I said, no, I don't do that. And what I usually did was I refer to other people, to you, to Hannah, and to Yunhan, other great creator. But then I said, okay, why don't I just do something smaller? And there was this website that had Alex Maese, which was one of the very early,
yeah, he's one of the initial stars as well.
Exactly, and he started doing that, and I asked, hey Alex, can I get inspired by your? He had on Gumroad, if I remember correctly, and it was very easy. It was just this is the process. You get the license. This is what you have. This is what you will get. This is the timeline, etc. And then another person from the community, is Michael Borman. I asked about when it was getting a little bigger. I asked about the IP, and he sent me to this Creative Commons license. So it's very easy. You can just say, okay, this is under the Creative Commons license. You have to give credit. You cannot do derivative, but you can do commercial use. And what is commercial use? It's all already written. So it's just copy and paste. So you're covered legally. And then what I did is just put this on the website. And to everyone who was asking, For custom, I said, well, I don't do custom, but I have 1,000 illustrations in my backlog, so maybe you will find something that fits, and I can tweak it, and I can change the text, and I can put your logo, because this is not too time intensive, and it still feels like personalized, and it is, and I can even change the color, put the brand, all these things is pretty easy. Of course, if you put the work, if you have the assets, you can do it. It's not 3 hours every mission. So yeah, it was good. I don't promote it like actively. It's just one part of what I have. If someone reaches out to ask, can I do something custom? I answer that. And I also do it when one other thing. When I see someone, and I'm very specific about this because I care about these things, and I also want the other people to do it the same way. When I see someone, most of the time in good intention, sharing one of my work, which is great. You would classify these as good problems to have. People sharing your work. This is amazing because it means that they like it and they resonate with that and they want to use it with their own communication. But sometimes happen that you share one of my illustration, maybe you mention me, maybe not, and then you promote yourself or your product. And then I have this nice template, very polite, but at the same time, I hope very assertive when I say, this is not okay. This is my IP. So please, if you want to keep this, you can buy a license here, or you can remove it. But I hope you understand, first of all, and second, you can work together. And what I very surprised positively is that most of the time the people does this with good intention. And if there is, again, always the 1%, then you see clearly that he's stealing from all the people and cutting out the credits, all these kind of things happen. But this is 1%. We cannot judge based on that. Most of the time, the people doesn't know.
Yeah, and it's like just switching gears a bit to the people who unethically take the visuals or whatever. Like I always have the empathy, and as I said, it's good problems to have. And I think what I always keep in mind is that you never know, because some people cut out the credits, they post it on some fringe, group or whatever, some random Reddit, subreddit, whatever. And then some other people take that visual, but he has no idea that it's your visual, and then it's like you are trashing them online. Which is...
Yes, and let me push a little bit back to that, because there is one thing that now we have and earlier we didn't, which is very easy. If you want to really to give credit and you want to check whose illustration it is as easy as making a Google image search. And it will come out in 3 seconds who is the author. So for me, it's okay if you're sharing for the first time, but if you're a professional creator, you know how this works. So please check before posting, as I do. I also check when I sell a license of one of my illustration, I check if the sources that I trace back in the days, imagine if it's something for 2022, which I was just playing. I want to check if all these sources are public domain, and if not, I even reach out to the people who created this, and maybe they are on public vector basis, and I say, oh, hey, I did this derivative work on your work, and I want to license it. Are you okay with that? If they answer, great. If not, I will recreate. So I don't take I found it online as a justification, except, of course, if you are just starting, and we all have started. So a little bit of empathy on that, of course.
That's a very good point, that if you want to find original author, you can very easily. That's very good. But wow, I must compliment you really on the way how you think here, because it's quite brilliant. You decided that you don't want to do freelance because it's quite time intensive, which it is. I do quite a few freelance, and it is like it's pretty intensive. And instead of just, well, I don't do this, you figured out like a very interesting model how to still leverage some upside, from the inbound leads that love your work and want to work with you. Like, hey, I don't do this, but here's an alternative, that you can still like leverage and get some money, but which is like very easy for you to kind of do. It's very clear constraints. Hey, we can change colors, we can change text, I can add your logos, but that's it, and this is how much it costs. It's very smart. And also like how you, because I don't do this, but it's very clever that, if somebody posts and promotes their stuff, then you have a separate template to say, hey, this is promotion instead of whatever personal use, and therefore please buy a license or remove. It's very smart.
Thank you. And then I have another template, which is from the users that are like clearly change the image, put their own name, which is these 2% of the time. It's a little more assertive. Let's say this is like, it's not like, okay, I think you have a good intention. It's more like, this is not acceptable. Please don't do that. If you keep the post, this is what is going to happen. I want to feel compliant. And if you want to keep it, please do it in a better way. And everyone can make mistakes. And actually, I had a very good experience with one of these, which was constantly amazed me. And this is why I also pass all these templates to the critic of ChatGPT, Claude, and everything. I just asked the AI, please, can you tell me if this whole post, if this whole conversation was public, would I regret anything from this point of view? Because in the end, it's your image. It's you who is exposing yourself and imagine that you send a hateful message like, "What this is?" You don't have to shout at people, but if you do it, maybe someone can copy and paste and share it everywhere. So, and this is a good thing, because once happened that one of these people was not aware of that, because it was a team managing this account. And then we have a very healthy conversation. And then I even created an image inspired by that, and he shared. So it was completely not agreed, but it was nice, because in the end you think, okay, there is a person behind that. It's not like a robot copying and pasting.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, there's always these interesting stories that come up from these random events. There's another question which I wanna ask you. I think you're in a similar place as me. You are a bit in the visual bubble. We have a lot of visual friends. I have the course and community. So I know a lot of people as well, and it can feel like there's a lot of like visual creators, especially for us as we are in this bubble, and probably algorithms. Oh, you share stuff like this, so we'll feed you more stuff like this as well. So you see a lot of it. Though personally, when I see like a lot of students, especially who come from like various different industries, like some people, from medicine or from like super tech place, I feel that there is so much opportunity for visuals in various different niches, and it's not that overwhelming amount of visuals all over the place as it might seem for us. But what's like how you see this, and especially like I think you have a lot of friends now like in leadership roles, and like you are in a bit different niche. I'm more like in the creative space, and you are more in the like leadership, businessy, coachy type of niche. So how it feels? How do you feel the shift in the last couple of years? Like,
that's a great question. And actually, one of the things I'm seeing, starting with perhaps with the not so distant future, I'm seeing more and more images made with ChatGPT, which are pretty good. So, for example, and you see also on LinkedIn, there is this little badge, and I say, what is this? And it says, this is the content origin, and it is created with ChatGPT 4. And I say, oh, this is pretty good. And it looks like a consistent style. For example, I saw a very beautiful visual for my criteria for Marshall Goldsmith. And I saw other one from Sahil Bloom, and they are consistent in the style. It's not this kind of random stuff that just blurs out of GPT-4 and say, what is this? I cannot use that. So long to midterm, I see that this is going to be so democratized that maybe the people will think, is it worth to invest the time learning how to create a vector if I can do the same with the prompt? And this is a question. But at the same time, this is probably not the main point. So to your point that this is...
No, that's a good point. That's a good observation.
We have more and more. Yes, we have more and more. And even people who is not in the visual space now can create visual with a pretty good quality. And I think in 1 year will be amazing quality. I cannot predict this, but this is my bet. So connected to that, what I'm enjoying for example, there are people like Eduardo or Hide in the visual in the community, and I see the visual from people who is approaching for the first time the visual creator, and they're fresh, and I love that. And so this is the part that I like it, and seeing someone discover a new form of expression is like, wow. Probably this is something that my coaching side appreciates. So seeing how everyone can be creative and how everyone can create their own language. So this is something that amazes me. So that to your point, what I also see that perhaps in the future this will be just a way of communicating ideas. For me, definitely thinking about the classes or the workshop, I use this as a way to convey my ideas into the presentation. I have 40 illustrations in my deck because it's my way to share the ideas. So I'm not doing that just for sharing one idea. I'm doing this, which is integrated as a way to communicate and to prepare better for the class or whatever it is. So pretty optimist. And at the same time, of course, I look back and I say, oh yeah, I invested this much time learning and this is wasted time. No, it's not wasted because I learned something. I know how to use vectors and it's a very interesting skill to have. And I had a lot of fun. And so that was the moment. If I had to start again today, I don't know how I will do it, but I think I will still have fun.
Okay. I absolutely love what you said, especially like I think you're absolutely spot on about that it will be democratized, like it will be very accessible. Like I'm contributing and trying to contribute even more to that, as like I said in private in some conversations with you that I'm working on this explain ideas visually AI thing. I think like the style wise, AI is like super good. Concept wise, it's still not great. That's where I feel I can close this gap with like a software product. And like I actually started like a paid newsletter on Substack where like every week I share a template, a prompt, how you can give it your idea, give like your whatever idea, use this prompt, and then it will give you like a new text that you can apply for that template, and then you can take the template and ask for a style transfer in ChatGPT, and then you have your own unique concept, but you did it without any design kind of skills, you know? So it's like just definitely playing with that because I think that's the future and stuff. But what I really loved what you said, and I think there's like an interesting thing when it comes to visuals, as you know, in the course I always talk about like, to me, this is like just another vehicle how to communicate ideas, and we don't say this about people who write tweets and write, writing is so just like that's how you express yourself online. You write and you do video, but when it comes to visuals, there's this, I think, it's a bit like an art and stuff, so it can feel like there is a lot of it. But I think if we switch the mindset, hey, I don't care about style, I don't care how it looks like, I am here to communicate ideas. This visual just does it faster and better and lands the point like just more clearly. That's where I use visuals instead of being this whatever artsy stuff, which is fine as well, and like for example Ash Lamb, just brilliant artist. You look at his style, like, okay, hats off to you. You're just like a magician when it comes to this stuff, and like really trying to convey it like in an art form. Though I feel like more like me and you and I think few others, like we really try to communicate ideas, and I think that's a good mindset to have, and have just having that way of communication in your toolbox can be really useful.
Yeah, and there's one more thing, Janis, that you said is, which is in the beginning, it looks like when you start and you get some traction, not in the sense of the metrics, but in the sense of the, you see that you can do it, and they say, okay, this is not science or science. I can do it. I can have fun. Looks like it. There are a lot of ideas that come out very fast. So it's like opening a bottle and then like, wow, all these ideas that were in your head and come out. They say, wow, where did this come from? And then they still come. But I see, and this is what I like also for following new people sharing visual, is that you see this sprout of creativity in like, wow, novel things. And of course, we also have it, and I also have the idea. But I admit I had a lot, much more in the beginning, because probably it was like all this backlog in my mind, like, wow. And now we still have it because it's part of who we are, and it's different because it's connected to other things.
You know what I will add on this? It's like an interesting insight I had a while back, which I appreciate about doing freelance, because when I work on illustrations for myself, I can be lazy, I have like gazillion ideas I can illustrate, and I can like, whatever, let's do this. It doesn't come to me. Whatever, let's move on to the next one. So you have this freedom and flexibility, kind of not to push yourself. But when I work with freelance clients and I have very specific ideas, some chapters that the author really wants to illustrate, or there's whatever, some founder who I illustrate certain ideas, I just need to sit and really push myself. And that's what I love about freelance, though how taxing it is. But yeah. I very often come with very unique new ways how to explain ideas visually, because I just push myself, and I come out the other side with something new. And I would never push myself on my own with my own ideas. But when I do freelance, you want to do a good job and you have this constraint. So it's just an interesting insight to...
Absolutely.
It's nice if you can do it on your own work as well. But that's just a reflection I had recently and wanted to share with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels so true, because when I'm doing freelance for myself, so illustrating my workshops or the leadership classes or whatever, I feel exactly the same. I say, okay, this is not good enough. I have to try another one. And then I iterate. Yes, absolutely. I had to think about that. Thank you.
All right, Roberto. I want to kind of end this lovely conversation with you, though I have this year or next year we will meet in person and we can share a glass of wine and have a nice long conversation about visual stuff and all the things we do without any pressure to record and stuff. But I want to end with, as I said in the beginning, it really from the outside it feels, and I'm sure you agree, and if you don't agree, then pat yourself on the back and give yourself some credit that you are really doing so much and being such a role model for many of us. And I think, sorry for those who feel that you don't have time to create content and do visuals. Look at Roberto, being a very intentional father, doing this side hustle, that side hustle, full-time job, and still managing to prolifically create these illustrations. Like, can you talk a bit about your systems, your daily kind of life, that people could take away? Like, okay, Roberto is the super effective guy. Like, why? What's going on there? How much is it systems? How much is it mindset? What is some interesting small tweaks that you could share with me and others who want to be a bit more effective with their work and life?
Okay, first of all, I would say that the secret of this is that I am a robot. No.
AGI is here in the forms of Roberto.
No. And second, one thing that even if from the is always like that, from the outside you see, oh, you're doing all these things, but then in the inside, one of my actually the other side and one of the strengths, when you put it to the extreme, it becomes a saboteur. So when you want to optimize every single minute and hour, you will never do that, because you free up 10 minutes and you have 3 times the thing that you want to do. So you have 30 minutes and you want to fit it in the 10. You free half an hour and then you have 2 hours. So it's endless. And first you have to accept that. So I have to accept the FOMO that I will never do everything. So, for example, now I'm very excited about coding and creating apps, and because also it's connected to what I'm doing in my day job. And I know this is something that is taking a lot of time, and I have to accept the rest. And and it's work in progress. It feels easy to say, it doesn't feel so easy to do it every day. There are days that I say, oh, I want to do more. But
it sounds like you can vibe code and do all this coding stuff, which I know is very exciting. You can do part of your day job as well. I know you're like innovation leader or something like that in the company.
Yeah, I'm working in change management projects, so it's part of my work, and
okay.
It's very grateful.
So that's at least good.
Yeah, it's very good because there is also one thing which is unexpected in the beginning, and then it makes more sense, that everything that you do outside of formal job contributes to inside. And all that you do inside, of course, if I don't take out anything from my day job, but then the experience that you have helps you to be better outside. So this combination for me is working very well. And one more thing, a very quick tip would be not watch the news, not watch any movie, anything besides family time. And this frees up a lot of time. And because when people say, "Oh, I'm seeing this series," and I'm not judging. This is if it's they are enjoying, it's great. But again, you have to choose. What's my top priority? What will be the funnest thing? Probably will have a lot more fun if I do this than if I watch the whole Mandalorian series, which I, by the way, I'm a very big fan of Mandalorian. I have even this. My son gifted it to me. and then another thing connected to that is that I have to decide which are my real priorities. And for example, in the last 3 months, no, more than three, it's time flies, since January, I'm taking my kids to the bus. Me in the morning, I'm with them. So I don't have 30 minutes that I had every single morning. I had a time box to do social media, which were like 45 minutes. Now I have just 15 minutes. And one person asked me, which by the way, thank you, Kate is a very good friend, and I look up to her. And she said, "Is everything okay? Because I see you are less active." And I said, "Yes, absolutely. The fact is that now I'm bringing my kids to school, so I'm rescaling a little bit this time box because this is what I have."
But that's wow. That's like you are. So you really time block everything, and you try to stick to the schedule like a robot, which you are, as we now know.
And then things happen, always happen. And we have all had a visual of this is the plan, and this is the reality, and then you get stuck and the reality goes down. This also happens to me. Still, it's harder to trick yourself into doing something that is not on your schedule if it's still on your schedule, because then you are accountable. So in the morning, I also write in the morning and the evening. In the evening, I write a diary and I say what I'm going to do the next day, and I write it. 3 things.
How long do you write this diary?
It's 3 minutes. It's very, very easy. I have this here, and actually, I added questions with time. Now it's very easy. I have this list of questions which I do in 3 minutes. I have first in the morning. This is a little to remember to die. This is a memento mori, and then I have one reminder to be grateful for what I have. This is for my coach. Then I have the goals for today, the emotion that I want to express, who I will support, and this is for the day. In the end, I start with gratitude. Who did I help? What did I initiate? What did I learn? What did I do in my personal life? What was a struggle? What did I win? What did I do in work? Which was the emotions? And then the click. And then 3 questions, yes or no, if I was centered on myself first. If I had patience, this with my son, mostly, because I had to struggle with patience at a certain point, and I wanted to be a patient father because the impact of not having patience was not good. So this is accountable to myself. And then if I share the moment with my wife or not. These are all and then the final one, if this was the last day I lived, would I have done the half of the thing that I did? This is a very tough question. But actually, to bring some light, 99% is yes. So it's good.
Okay, good. That's very interesting. I was very surprised when you said like, "Oh, do you journal?" And you said, "Oh, it takes 3 minutes." I was like, "What? 3 minutes?" So that's very interesting. Maybe worth the post. Maybe others will find this useful.
Yeah. Actually, I took more time to explain than to do it, because when I do it, it's like da 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 boom.
Okay, good. Yeah. So what I got thus far is it's just very basic things, and I can relate a lot to the cutting Netflix. I remember when I started my online business journey, like way before visuals, when I just started to explore some stuff, it was like actually the love of the process was the thing that kind of kicked things off, because I enjoyed learning about online business and all this content creation, all these podcasts. It was like a new world for me. I was so fascinated that like no Netflix movie or series felt like more interesting than actually diving into this. And I still remember I stopped listening to music when I drove to work. I listened to podcasts. I was a maniac, because instead of going to lunch with my coworkers, I said I will go alone, and I brought my laptop with me to work, so I can work more on the side, instead of like, that's maybe a bit too extreme. We need to talk to people, but yeah, it's all about priorities. But it seems you're very structured with your time and actually like sticking to what you have in calendar. That's something I feel like I struggle with. Like, I try to experiment with various things. I try to kind of time things and set these intentions, but I don't know. It's very easy to be sidetracked. But yeah, again, good problems to have.
Yeah, exactly. And there may be weeks then we are not 100%, and now it feels like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this and that, but then maybe tomorrow something happens and I cannot do what I want, and I have to accept it because if I don't, it's the same.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
Roberto. It's been very nice to talk to you. You really are an inspiration. It's been absolutely wonderful to witness your growth and how you join and how you live, and really how prolific you are, and just positive. Just, you're a badass. I really adore what you're doing. Any last words you want to leave people with, especially as this will be an edition for Explain Ideas Visually newsletter, maybe some wise words for aspiring visual creators, and then just share the stuff you're up to, and maybe, I don't know, do you love coaching? Feel free to redirect people wherever you want, and we'll of course link all the things in the descriptions.
Yeah, about me, of course, you mentioned that I do so many things. So feel free, if you're curious to listening this, feel free to get into my website. If something caught your attention, amazing. And if not, I'm very grateful to having the opportunity to share this with you. And because, also when you explain these things, it's a test, is to see if you really believe in this, if you're really enjoying this. And I'm very grateful that I bought this NFT so many years ago. And one invitation, especially now that we have all this AI and this stuff, is something that you always say, just to be a decent human being, which is what all the world is full. And we mentioned that this conversation, to think about that, there is a person on the other side. There is always a person. And this is the beautiful thing. What I would invite the people is to share, and also to connect, to have real conversations, and to like you mentioned, the good old days. And we still have this, and we still have this proof. This conversation is perfect, and I hope that someone maybe wants, when he or she hears the conversation, want to reach out, want to share something. And I'm also always very curious to see what the people have to share. And this is the beauty of creating. As we said, that we are all creative. We have different voices. Every one of us is unique. And this is the fun part also. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.